What if I told you that the next financial crash won't look anything like 2008? And what if I told you that by preparing for the last crisis, the world has made itself perfectly vulnerable to the real one that's already underway? Our collective financial memory is scarred by one singular event, the financial crisis of 2008. It became the benchmark for disaster, the lens through which every future economic tremor is interpreted. Because of that, the public, led by a media addicted to familiar narratives, is now bracing for the wrong catastrophe. They're expecting another deflationary crash, falling stock tickers, collapsing home prices, and a tightening credit squeeze. But that expectation is a dangerous miscalculation. The crisis that is approaching is not a repeat of 2008. It is not a cyclical correction. It's a structural unraveling of the entire global financial system. What is coming is not a market collapse, it is a collapse of the foundation beneath all markets. The very definition of value, the trust placed in our currency, is eroding. This isn't a storm that passes, it's a change in the climate itself. Back in 2008, we faced a deflationary crash, a credit bubble bursting. When that happened, asset prices collapsed, but cash was king. The dollar held its value. Those who held cash could buy assets for pennies on the dollar. Painful as it was, the system rebooted. This time, the story is the opposite. The coming crisis is inflationary. It's not about credit, it's about currency. It's a sovereign debt crisis. And when this bubble bursts, asset prices won't fall, they'll skyrocket. Stock portfolios will soar, home prices will reach dizzying heights, but it will all be an illusion. It will look like wealth, but it will really be panic wealth fleeing from a dying currency. In this type of collapse, there is no reset button. You can buy the dip when the dip is the very money in your bank account. Housing won't become cheaper. It will become permanently unaffordable. Savings, decades of work will be inflated into nothingness. The middle class will be hollowed out, not by unemployment, but by the relentless theft of purchasing power. There is no recovery from this. This isn't a reset, it's a finality. So what's the real bubble? It's not in stocks or housing. It's hidden in plain sight in government bonds and the fiat currencies that back them, especially the U.S. dollar. For decades, we've been told U.S. treasuries are risk-free, the dollar is strong, but that illusion of safety is built on a promise of fiscal discipline that no longer exists. Everycrisis.com, 2008, the pandemic was met with the same two tools: print more money and issue more debt. Each time, the doses grew larger. It seemed miraculous, no immediate consequences, but the pain wasn't erased, it was just postponed. Now we sit atop an unimaginable mountain of government debt, trillions created. From nothing, promises backed by insolvent governments. The future has arrived, and the bill is due. The U.S. government is no longer borrowing to grow, it's borrowing to survive, to pay interest on existing debt, to keep the lights on. The math is brutal. Debt is growing faster than the economy. A breaking point isn't just possible, it's inevitable. And here's the terrifying truth: there's no real market for this debt anymore. Foreign buyers are vanishing. The Federal Reserve and domestic institutions, forced by regulation, are now the only major buyers left. The government issues debt and the Fed prints money to buy it. It's a closed loop, a system feeding on itself. When confidence breaks, when those forced buyers disappear, the government will turn to its last tool, printing money to pay its debts. That's when inflation turns into hyperinflation. The currency fails, the boom in prices becomes a mirage, masking the collapse of purchasing power. Ask yourself, are assets becoming more valuable or is money becoming more worthless? The answer is clear. Investors aren't chasing returns anymore. They're running from debasement. Look at the signs. A stock market held up by only a handful of giant tech companies: Apple, Nvidia, Microsoft. These are not growth plays. They're lifeboats. Investors see them as safer than the currency itself. It's not a tech bubble, it's a currency bubble. At the same time, gold and Bitcoin are hitting record highs. Collectibles, fine art, even everything scarce is surging. This isn't irrational mania, it's a rational escape. In a world drowning in printed money, scarcity becomes the only store of value. The housing market tells the same story. Government subsidies, tax incentives, and the pandemic-era rate cuts have warped it beyond repair. Homeowners locked in at 2 or 3% mortgages can't sell. If they did, they'd have to buy a new home at 8% interest. Their payments would double or triple, so their frozen supply has evaporated, but demand hasn't. Prices remain painfully high. There won't be a 2008-style crash. The nominal price of homes will stay elevated, but their real value, measured in gold, energy, or groceries, is collapsing. Housing is no longer a ladder to wealth. It's a fortress wall, and most people are locked out. But this frozen market doesn't just crush buyers, it's suffocating the banks. Those low-interest mortgages, the ones being paid on time, are now toxic assets. Banks are paying more to borrow money than they earn on their loans, and the same is true for government bonds. When the Fed hiked rates, the value of these safe assets plunged. Banks now sit on trillions in unrealized losses, pretending those assets are worth face value. It's a fiction. When depositors ask for their money back, that fiction collapses just as it did with Silicon Valley Bank. This time, the entire system is too big to market. It looks stable only as long as no one asks questions. But when confidence cracks, it all falls apart. Central banks are trapped. If they raise rates to fight inflation, they bankrupt their governments. If they lower rates to save the economy, they destroy the currency, insolvency. Or hyperinflation, there's no third option. And when trust finally breaks, when people realize that money is just paper backed by promises from insolvent institutions, it's over. Money isn't paper, it's trust. Bonds aren't assets, they're promises. When trust dies, no policy, no central bank, no speech can restore it. This won't be a financial event, it will be a transfer of wealth on a scale the world has never seen. The losers will be those who followed the old rules, the savers, the retirees, the cautious investors who believed government bonds were safe. The middle class, the backbone of society, will see their life savings evaporate in real time. The winners will be those who saw it coming, those who moved their wealth out of paper promises and into scarce, real assets: gold, silver, Bitcoin, productive land, and businesses that generate real value. This isn't just a financial reset, it is the end of an era built on illusion and the beginning of one forced to reckon with reality. The world is shifting from infinite debt and false promises to tangible, provable, scarce value. It will be painful, it will be chaotic, but it will also be the greatest redefinition of wealth in modern history. Thank you for watching. If this conversation is important to you, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss our next video. Stay informed and stay safe.